The silk of the red dress whispered against her skin as Maria folded it carefully, placing it at the bottom of her worn suitcase beneath the plain uniforms she'd need for her new job. It was the only beautiful thing she owned, a gift from her late mother, saved for a special occasion that had never come. Now, as she prepared to work as a maid in a stranger's home, that occasion felt further away than ever. James Whitmore stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse, watching the city lights blur into streaks of gold and white. At 42, he had everything money could buy: a successful tech company, properties across 3 continents, and a lifestyle most people only glimpsed in magazines. Yet the reflection staring back at him was that of a man who'd forgotten what any of it meant. His wife had left 2 years ago, taking their daughter. "You've become a ghost in your own life," she'd said. He hadn't understood then. He wasn't sure he understood now. Maria arrived on a gray Monday morning, her hands trembling as she pressed the buzzer. The employment agency had been clear: Mr. Whitmore was a private man, demanding but fair. She needed this job desperately. Her younger brother's medical bills were mounting, and the small apartment in Queens she shared with him and their aging father was one missed payment away from eviction. "You're early," James said when he opened the door, surprised to find a young woman with kind eyes and shoulders that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "I believe in respecting other people's time, sir," Maria replied softly, her accent wrapping around the words like a familiar melody. For the first 3 weeks, they existed in separate orbits. James left before dawn and returned after midnight, communicating through notes left on the kitchen counter. "Please water the plants in the study. The dry cleaning needs pickup. Thank you for organizing my office." Maria moved through the penthouse like a whisper, cleaning rooms that rarely saw life, preparing meals that often went cold and uneaten. But Maria noticed things others might have missed. The prescription bottles in the bathroom cabinet, sleeping pills, anxiety medication, all recent. The family photos turned face down on the desk. The guitar in the corner, covered in dust, its strings probably untouched for years. The life James had built was immaculate on the surface, but underneath, it was crumbling. One evening, James came home early to find music drifting through the penthouse. Not from speakers, but something warmer, more human. He followed the sound to the kitchen and stopped in the doorway. Maria stood at the stove, humming as she stirred something that filled the air with the scent of garlic, tomatoes, and herbs. She wasn't wearing her usual uniform. Instead, she wore the red dress. The dress moved with her like water catching light, transforming the sterile kitchen into something alive. For the first time in 2 years, James felt something crack open inside his chest. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Whitmore," Maria said, spinning around, her face flushing with embarrassment. "My uniforms were all in the wash, and I had an emergency call from my brother's hospital. I had to leave quickly this morning and—" "It's fine," James interrupted, his voice rougher than intended. "What are you cooking?" "My mother's recipe. Arroz con pollo. I made extra, thinking you might be hungry when you got home. I know you don't usually eat what I prepare, but—" She trailed off, uncertain. James surprised them both. "It smells incredible. May I join you?" That dinner changed everything. Over the simple meal, they talked, really talked, for the first time. Maria told him about her brother's leukemia, her father's fading memory, her mother, who'd died dreaming of seeing her children succeed. She spoke about fear and hope in the same breath, about working 3 jobs before landing this one, about the red dress her mother had sewn by hand, thread by thread. James found himself sharing too. About his daughter who barely spoke to him during their weekly video calls. About building an empire while losing his family. About success that tasted like ash and emptiness that no amount of money could fill. "You know what I think, Mr. Whitmore," Maria said gently. "I think you're living in a museum of your own life. Everything is perfect and preserved, but nothing is alive. Nothing is real." Her words struck him like lightning. That night, after Maria went home, James couldn't sleep. He walked through his penthouse, really seeing it for the first time in years. She was right. It was a mausoleum, beautiful and dead. The next morning, James did something unprecedented. He called his office and took the day off. When Maria arrived, he was waiting. "I need your help," he said. "Not as a maid, as someone who still remembers what matters." Together, they transformed the penthouse. They turned the family photos face up. James picked up the guitar, his fingers fumbling over chords he'd once known by heart while Maria encouraged him. They opened windows that had been sealed shut, letting autumn air sweep through the rooms. They cooked together, and James learned that creating something with your hands could quiet the noise in your mind. But it was the hospital visit that truly changed everything. James insisted on driving Maria to see her brother, and there he met Carlos, a 13-year-old boy with his sister's eyes and a smile that refused to die despite the tubes and monitors. "Maria says you're important," Carlos said weakly. "Like a king or something." James laughed, the sound surprising him. "No, buddy. Your sister is the important one. She's the strongest person I've ever met." Watching Maria with her brother, the tenderness, the fierce love, the way she read to him and made him laugh even when he was in pain, James finally understood what his ex-wife had meant. This was being alive. This was being human. Not the corner office or the stock portfolios, but this, connection, purpose, love. That night, James made a decision. He called his lawyer and his accountant. Within a week, he'd set up a trust fund for Carlos's medical care, covering all treatments and ensuring the family would never face eviction again. When he told Maria, she collapsed into a chair, tears streaming down her face. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for us?" James knelt beside her, his own eyes wet. "Because you gave me something far more valuable. You reminded me how to be human again. You showed me that life isn't about what you accumulate, it's about what you give, who you love, how you show up for people." 6 months later, the penthouse looked completely different. Maria no longer worked as a maid. James had helped her enroll in nursing school, something she'd always dreamed of pursuing. But she still came by, now as a friend, often wearing that red dress. Carlos was in remission, his laughter filling the apartment during the weekly dinners that had become tradition. James had restructured his company, stepping back from the crushing hours to focus on philanthropic work. He'd reconnected with his daughter, who now visited every other weekend. The guitar stayed out, its strings worn from use. On Christmas Eve, as snow fell softly outside and friends gathered around the table, Maria's family, James's daughter, colleagues who'd become like family, James raised his glass. "To second chances," he said, looking at Maria in her red dress, the woman who'd walked into his life as a maid and left him with something priceless, his humanity restored. "And to the people brave enough to show us who we really are." Maria smiled, her eyes shining. Sometimes, she thought, the most beautiful thing you can wear isn't a dress at all, it's courage. And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give isn't service, but truth. The red dress had changed everything, not because of its color or beauty, but because it represented something irreplaceable. The moment one human being truly saw another and chose kindness over indifference, connection over isolation, love over fear. In the end, that was all any of us really needed.